So our theme this month, for those of you who saw the email early this morning, the theme this month is how affirmative prayer works. And today's topic is dealing with BS. You know, when Forrest Gump said life is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. Lots and lots of people agreed with that statement. Life is like that. In fact, enough people agreed with that statement to get Tom Hanks an Oscar for playing the part of Forrest Gump. But there were others who said, you know, that's just BS. Life may be full of chocolates and other wonderful things, but saying you never know what you're going to get, that's BS. That's just your belief system. Yeah, I fooled some of you, didn't I? Bet you thought I'd gone over the edge or I'd eaten too much chocolate, and that I was going to start using language that you don't hear in these services on Sunday morning. Belief system. Well, you know, for some people, their belief system really does create a life of never knowing what's coming next. And because of that, it can be a pretty rough ride. Here's an example. Old Rudy had been down on his luck for a long time. No matter what he did, it just went badly for him. So one day, while he was sitting on a park bench, feeling sorry for himself, as usual, he looked up at the sky. And he said sadly, "Why, God? Why is all this happening to me?" And suddenly, everything around him became very still. The heavens parted, lightning flashed, and then thunder rolled, and God spoke. "There's just something about you, Rudy, that ticks me off." Well, isn't that just BS? I mean, that's the belief system that some people have. If their life is going wrong, or their life is a drag, or their life is so unpredictable, they think it must be because God has it in for them. However, that's a false belief. It's a whole false belief system. And today, I'd like to start off this series on effective prayer by unloading the BS that gets in the way of vibrant good, gets in the way of health in your life, the BS that creates lack instead of prosperity and abundance in your life, the BS that blocks loving, supportive relationships in your life. So, as I mentioned earlier, our theme today is how affirmative prayer works. And today's topic, as you've already discerned, is dealing with BS. Some time ago, I attended Religious Science International annual conferences at Asilomar conference grounds in the Monterey Bay area in California. Religious scientists from all over the world would come there for those conferences, those conventions, to be inspired by marvelous speakers and facilitators. We sang together. We ate together. We laughed and we cried together. We prayed together. But most importantly, we were there to open our belief systems to greater possibilities. We were there to feed our belief systems with the realization that through spiritual practice, including spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer, that there's no limit to what any one of us can do or be or have. In the mid-1800s, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote an essay on spiritual law. Emerson, as you will remember, was a poet, a political scientist, a philosopher, an economist, even a minister. But most of all, he was a philosopher. And he is best known in New Thought circles as the father of New Thought, at least in the Western Hemisphere. And in his essay, he said, there is an essence at the center of nature and over the will of every person, so that none of us wrong the universe. It has so infused its strong enchantment into nature that we prosper when we accept its advice. When you place yourself in the middle of this stream of power and wisdom, you are, without effort, impelled to truth, to right, and to a perfect contentment. Emerson believed that thoughts are things, and that what we think about comes about in our lives. You hear those phrases all through Ernest Holmes' writings, don't you? Because he was a student of Ralph Waldo Emerson, and because he so gravitated to those truths. Emerson's beautiful phrase, we prosper when we accept the advice of our soul at the center of our existence. That tells me that I can choose a belief system like that. Emerson said, place yourself in the middle of the stream of power and wisdom, and you are, without effort, impelled to truth, right, and perfect contentment. You see, that's a belief system that honors us as individuals, isn't it? That's a belief system that supports us in successful living. That's a belief system that allows us to move past limited thinking. But it's also a belief system that requires us to actively engage in the process of living our lives. In our own spiritual family, we've had several recent occurrences that demonstrate what I mean about moving past limited thinking and actively engaging in the process of living. And each of them includes the use of spiritual mind treatment, which is affirmative prayer, to bring about our desired outcome. And each of them is an instance where, as Dr. Holmes once wrote, you don't have to deny a fact to affirm the truth. You don't have to deny a fact to affirm the truth. The truth is that we're perfect, whole, and complete. And when that truth is obscured by a condition, a fact, so to speak, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional, we can return to the truth through the use of affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment. And here's a cute little story that illustrates further the point of moving past limited thinking. And I'd like to share it with you now. A drama group at a college presented a play in which one character would stand on a trap door in the stage and announce, "I descend into hell." And a stagehand below would then pull a rope, the trap door would open, and the character would plunge through, disappearing from sight. Well, during the course of the run of the play, the actor playing that part became ill, and another character, or actor, who was quite a bit larger than the original one, took his place. So when the new actor announced, "I descend into hell," and the stagehand pulled the rope, the actor began his plunge, but because of his size, he became hopelessly stuck, and no amount of tugging on that rope could make him descend. Well, in the silence of this dilemma, and the audience was absolutely silent, a student watching the play from the balcony stood up and yelled, "Hallelujah! Hell is full." You see, truth can be demonstrated in some very graphic ways. Hell is just a belief system. BS, as the saying goes. Hell is not a place. Hell is not a limitation. It's not a limitation on our eternalness. It's just a belief system that recognizes discordance or separation. And it's a belief system that can be changed by recognizing that the wisdom and power of God, of creative source, of divine intelligence, whatever you call it, that it does not create limitation or discordance or separation. We do, in our own minds. Like we create mystery in a box of chocolates. Or like we build a trap door, and then we get stuck in it in the same way we get stuck in our own limited thinking. The good news is we can move past any belief system that leaves us stuck or in the dark. And we do that by building our faith, by using positive prayer, by experiencing and believing in positive belief, positive experience, and acting on it. If you're getting anything less than that in your life, then it's time to take a look at the BS in your life and to decide whether it's worth hanging on to, making yourself miserable. Later this month, our Science of Mind classes are back in action. And every one of you here in the room is eligible to take those classes. And I would challenge every one of you to do so. Unless, of course, you have absolutely no problems in your life, no issues, no aches and pains, no financial concerns. If your life is total bliss, abundance, total joy, then please come to the class and teach it, because we can learn from you. But all of us can learn something from these incredible classes that Centers for Spiritual Living offers. I learn something new about the effectiveness of prayer treatment every time I teach one. Each time any of us addresses a part of the science of mind, we address it from a different level in consciousness than we did the last time we studied it. You see, life is about making every experience count. Everything that happens in our lives is happening for growth, for understanding, and or for healing. I remember some years back in my own life coming to the realization that I always immersed myself in my feelings of inadequacy, of loneliness, or of lack when they came up. But when I succeeded at something, or I did something I really enjoyed, it was like, okay, that's done, what's next? I didn't really acknowledge the good things that were happening in my life. And that was because my belief system at that time was focused on the negative. So once I realized that, I realized I also needed to focus on the positive in order to grow and to move past those negative ideas. I had some BS in my thinking that needed to change in order for me to change. And that's work. It means looking at what the payoff is for being sick, for being poor, for being unhappy, for being ignored, or being taken advantage of, or. The list goes on and on when we choose for it to. It means considering the possibility that you're worth more than any of those things. It means developing a relationship with your source of being an active participant in your own improvement. And the most powerful way to do that is to develop communication system with your Creator. Affirmative prayer is that system. So here are some things to think about in that regard. How often do you do your own spiritual mind treatments? How often do you go into a quiet place, open your mouth, and do a treatment in your own behalf? Do you know the difference between a 3-step, a 5-step, and a 7-step treatment? Do you know why one works better than the others for you in certain circumstances? Do you have results you can recall that demonstrate how powerful your prayers actually are? Spiritual practice is an integral part of the marvelous experiences we're having right here, right now. Spiritual beings in this physical realm of existence. Our belief system must include loving this experience. Whatever experiences we're having, we want to feel fully and with awareness. But we have them to learn from, not to stay stuck in, even when they're grand and glorious. And we want to remember always that every human experience is also a spiritual experience. The spiritual part of you cannot be separated from the physical part, even though one has size and mass and shape that you can see, and the other doesn't. If we think that our body, our mind, our spirit, our heart are separate from our soul or our essence, well, that's just BS. This is a belief that needs updating. For whatever we do in our conscious, noticeable actions becomes a part of us through the soul at the center of our existence. Dr. Ernest Holmes talked about the soul as humankind's reenactment of the nature of God. He said, whatever is true of the universe as a whole must also be true of the individual as some part of this whole. Humans are evolved from the universe as self-conscious, thinking, choosing centers of the living spirit. Individualized intelligence. God consciousness. Holmes goes on to elaborate on that by saying, humankind is therefore one with the soul of the universe as well as in the unity of life. This is just how our orderly, balanced, harmonious, loving, peaceful universe, overseen by an organized, creative intelligence, this is how the universe works. And when your belief system expands to embrace that, well, that's no BS, folks. That's the real thing. We all know by now that what we think about expands. So when we never know what to expect next, like in the box of chocolates, we may not be pleased with some of the outcomes we get. But when we learn to put forth positive, loving, prosperous, expanding thoughts, that's what we get back. Knowing how to do prayer treatment conveys that message to the organizing intelligence of the universe. It's how we make our intentions unfold. So as you go through this next week, in preparation for next week's talk on awareness, I'd like to suggest some things for you to give some thought to, some attention to. Take some time to examine the following ideas. 1, what are the things or the ideas I'd like to change about myself? 2, what are the things, ideas I'm willing to accept about myself? 3, what are the things or ideas I'm willing to love in myself? 4, what are the things or ideas I want to be rid of in my life? 5, what are the things or the ideas I see as gifts in my life? 6, what are the things or the ideas that I want to keep in my life? And 7, see, there's one for each day of the week. 7, what are the things or the ideas in my life that I am grateful for? Put these into the forefront of your thoughts this next week, into your conscious awareness. Give them the BS test, the belief system test. Say to yourself, yes, these ideas are part of my belief system. Do they serve me? Maybe they did serve me at some time in the past, but do they serve me now? Do they serve my highest and best good? Are they positive, loving, prosperous, expanding ideas? Or like the box of chocolate or the trap door into hell, are they just BS that no longer lifts my heart, my mind, my spirit, and my very essence? Say to yourself, if these ideas and these things don't bring me joy and peace and happiness and zest for life, then they're out of here. I'm done with them. Instead, I choose to place myself in the middle of the stream of power and wisdom. I choose to live in truth without effort. I choose to live in right thinking without effort. I can learn to do prayer treatment that works in my life. Every time, in every instance, and in total success. And so it is.